Checking out the Sportsline podcast on CHCH. I'm Bubba O'Neill. As you know, we love speaking to and uncovering amazing sports stories from Southern Ontario, and in particular, the Golden Horseshoe. And folks, there are so many. Today, a master of her sport on a national level, turning entrepreneur also on a national level. Well, it all began with a little soccer ball at a young age, and after becoming one of the proud graduates of White Oak Secondary in Oakville, this member of the Oakville Soccer Club took her talents to the Canadian women's national team, where she was a staple for over 2 decades. And during the 2012 Olympics in London, she scored one of the most significant goals in our country's history. Now retired, Diana Matheson is the founder of the Northern Super League to help secure the soccer dreams for Canadian women just like herself. Well, this is awesome. I mean, to have you, Diana, joining us here on the Sportsline podcast, I'm so honored. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm telling you, these are important and fun times for you. I have to ask a simple question. Is it an emotional time for you, or are you still in robot mode?
That's a good question. I think the last 2 years just been living that entrepreneur lifestyle. So for those viewers out there that knows that life, I would say it's probably pretty similar. Lots of long days, lots of uncertainty. But fortunately, we're at the point in this project where we're 2 years in. We're getting closer and closer every day to kick off next April. We've got our 6 teams: Vancouver, Calgary, Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, and Halifax. And there's just such a group of amazing people at the clubs and at the league that are building this thing that it feels different in that, you know, we know it's happening now, and we know we're going to have a great product on the field next year. So a little of both. I feel it, but robot mode, sprint mode until we kick off next year, and then very much looking forward to kicking that first ball in April of 2025.
Well, you know, I recently read a message from someone in I think kind of in a situation kind of like you. I think it's from the Canadian Women's Sport CEO, Alison Sandmeyer-Graves. She talked about the importance of enrolling girls in sports programs and how participation in sport is essential for their development. What would you say to that?
Yeah, and Alison and Canadian Women in Sport have done some fantastic work over the last few years. They've done a lot of reporting on girls dropping out of sport. They've done a lot of studies into the commercial case for women's sport and the potential in our market, women's pro sport. So they've been a fantastic organization in moving things forward. They did some work that showed girls and boys in Canada actually start sport at the same participation rates, but by the time girls turn 18, they've dropped out of sport at 3 times the rate of boys. So 1 in 10 boys will drop out of sport, but it's 1 in 3 girls. And it has to do with all sorts of reasons. There's not enough available pathways built for girls and women. There's not enough coaches for girls and women. There's not enough visible role models. So definitely with the Northern Super League, with building women's professional sport, women's professional soccer in Canada, we absolutely want to impact that, because sport has so many benefits. We know it on health and well-being, on education, on skills like leadership and collaboration. There's really cool stats that show women that play high performance sports also perform at a high level in business. It's about jobs and opportunities for women. So it's a big thing that this project will impact more than just the players on the field.
Before I look towards kickoff in April, I kind of want to go back a little bit to your playing career in Oakville. I mean, did you ever, and I'm just talking about your playing career, did you ever imagine that all the things that you accomplished and being on a national team, and you were a high-level player in Oakville as well, too, so there were some signs that, you know, you could play the game very well. Did you ever think you would do what you did?
No, because you can't be what you can't see. And there was nothing out there for women's soccer. I think I barely knew the women's national team existed. Women's soccer definitely wasn't on TV. We weren't in the Olympics yet. There was no women's professional soccer leagues really when I was a kid. So no, it wasn't a possibility for me to even dream about. And so fortunately, during kind of the span of my career, that has shifted so quickly. Women's sport started to be treated like a business. Real investment started to go in. It started to get marketed. Professional leagues started to grow all around the world. And that's the time frame we're in now, where kids can grow up, they can actually see women's sport, women's pro sport in Canada week in and week out, and they can dream of, if they grow up in Oakville, they can dream about playing for the professional team down the road in Toronto. And that is such a gift. I can't even imagine what that would have meant for me, being able to have that dream and maybe someday putting on the home team jersey. I got to play for Canada over 200 times. I got to play a handful of those at home in Toronto. But the one thing I'm jealous of the future generation is they'll get to do that for their hometown team from coast to coast. And I can't wait for the next generation to experience that.
Around 2020, 21, retirement kind of happens. No more international play. You quit. You move on from your club team, but you're doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's an executive MBA at Queens. You do some analyst work, I think, on CBC and TSN, public speaking. When this was all going on and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do with your life going forward, was this the sort of steps to where you become the CEO of Project 8 Sports Incorporated?
Yeah, I knew I didn't plan this, but I knew that when I retired from soccer, I was always been interested on the business side. I'd done some stuff with our Players Association and different projects for athletes' rights over the years, run some camps, done some things. Women's pro athletes always have a couple of things on the go often, just to make some more money, keep ourselves busy. And that often it's a strength, I think, in the women athletes pool. So coming out of sport, retiring from soccer, I knew I wanted to be involved in whatever was going to be built for women's pro soccer in Canada. We all knew it was coming eventually. It's been the only thing missing in our landscape. We're exceptional at the national team level. We have the third largest player pool for girls and women in the world. And there was only 2 countries in last Women's World Cup that don't have a pro league, Canada and Haiti. So I knew something was going to happen at some point, and I just wanted to be a part of it. So like you said, I went back to school for a couple years. I was very lucky to get a scholarship through the COC and Game Plan to the Smith School of Business. I did an MBA program there. I was very lucky to do a UEFA Academy program in Europe, which was specific to the soccer industry and kind of a transition program for former players. So I was just a student for 18 months and spoke to as many people as I could, learned as much as I could, did all my individual projects on women's pro soccer in Canada, and got a really good picture of how we could build in Canada. Knew for certain that the time was now, and saw that no one else was really working on it. So decided just to give the thing a push myself, and here we are sprinting towards kickoff in 2025.
And that's funny. I love that you say the time is now, because that's a little phrase that stuck with me. I had Renata Fost here talking about the PWHL and the fact that she believed at that time when this was all happening that the time is now for women's sports, and that I don't know if it was we didn't accept it. As you said, it wasn't a lot on television, not a lot on print, not a lot spoken about it. But did you really believe, like, we got to take advantage of this right now?
Yes, it's now for sure. And even trying to do this project 3-4 years ago, I don't think the landscape is ready. And waiting 3 to 4 more years, we've missed the window to get into the market. And actually the gap between Canada and the rest of the world will be too big to catch up. So it's now. And that's because, again, women's pro sport is so new. It's a very new industry. Women's sport in general has had all this myth and bias in the past around it that said, no one watches women's sport. Women's sport doesn't make money, but it was never treated like a business. So it didn't run like a business. And that has just shifted drastically in the last 5 years. And really in the last 3 years, and real investment has gone into it. It's been marketed. It's been run by a business. And what you've seen is all the numbers that are coming out of it say when you put money into it, when you make it visible to the market, people watch and people spend money. So women's pro sport is growing faster than men's pro sport right now. And for soccer, I mean, we're a global market, and the growth potential is basically unlimited for women's soccer. And we're really good at women's soccer in Canada. So yeah, the time's now, because it's a brand new market, it's growing quickly, and we want to get in the market and compete before it's too late. And that's what we're doing.
And exactly what you just said there, and I'm looking at this on the CEBL, the CPL. For any of this to work, you got to get major sponsors. You got to get broadcast partners. You got to figure out what cities you're going to play in. You've taken care of all that.
Yeah, we've done a lot. Still lots to do before next year, but yeah, we've got our 6 founding teams, as you know, Vancouver, Calgary, Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, and Halifax. Team owners who bought into a franchise model. We were so lucky to have founding sponsors off the bat, and we'll be announcing more founding sponsors as we come. Incredible companies like Canadian Tire, who have been behind so much of the movement in Canadian sport. They're behind basically any Canadian pro sport initiative right now is Canadian Tire. They've been real leaders in the space. We've got TSN and CBC as our broadcast partners, so Canadians can watch games on TV, and the games that aren't on TV, we're still going to have available online for folks to watch. The clubs have branded themselves, and yeah, we've announced lots, and there's lots more to come. Most of the teams have announced their stadiums. About half have announced their coaches, so there'll be more coach announcements. There'll be player announcements starting in the next number of weeks leading up to next year. So yeah, we've built a lot, and then a lot more to build and share with Canadians before preseason, probably towards the end of February, and kick off in mid-April.
Well, and this is what's incredible to me, because I mean, I've kind of looked into some things here and modeled what other leagues have done, you know, especially like yourselves, and how you put together a league. And for people that think it's easy, it's certainly not that. And as I said, there are so many particulars, but especially with some of the facts that you talked about, the fact that soccer is popular, women's sport, soccer in this country is very popular, and you do have a very deep pool of players to select from. The easier thing, I think, would have been to, you know, maybe throw or at least bid for a couple of teams in the NWSL, maybe have some type of linkage with the Canadian Premier League on the men's side, which is now, I guess, in its 5th, 6th year of development and playing right now. Why did you choose to go on your own route?
Yeah, that's a great question. And really, we looked at all options when we were starting this project. And to answer your first question, you know, as we know, a lot of men's sport in North America for Canada means that we have a team or maybe 2 teams or a few teams that are operating in a U.S. league. And for us, that wasn't the path forward, because we want to make sure at the end of the day that Canada continues to compete and win Olympic medals and win World Cups in women's soccer. And what would happen if we added a couple of teams in the US League and the NWSL, which is a fantastic league? I played there many years. You know, we'd probably have 1 or 2 teams in Canada, and those 1 or 2 teams would be in 2 of the cities that already have a high performance pathway for girls in Canada, one of only 3 high performance pathways that are run by the national team and partners. So you wouldn't really impact the player development in Canada. You'd be in the same places. The couple NWSL teams we had in Canada would probably limit how many Canadians could actually play on the team, because they don't want kind of a national team playing pro up here. So you'd have maybe 10 Canadians playing here, 10 Canadians playing here, a couple coaches, a couple refs. Doesn't impact the big picture. We're trying to create more opportunities for girls playing soccer across the country, so we can really leverage this player pool. And that means a league. That's the way global soccer works. We need a strong domestic league where actually our winning teams get to compete against the other teams in the NWSL and in Mexico in a Champions League format, the magic of soccer. But we want 6, then 7, then 8, then 10, then 12 teams across Canada. So we've got professional pathways across Canada, and then we have hundreds of opportunities for girls to play professionally, to go through our professional pathway. Way more opportunities for women coaches, referees, medical staff, women working in the media, women working in business. The impact of a league is just so much bigger, and if we want to continue to compete on the world stage, the league is the way forward. And again, because we've got the players, because we've got the fan support of fans that have been watching this national team for over a decade, because we've got a strong business model with the corporate sponsorship and investment here, we can be a top 5 league in the world. Like I said, women's pro soccer is so new. It's still to be determined who's going to be the top leagues in the world over the next 10 years. And we can be a top 5 league in the world.
It's so exciting, Diana. I have chills actually just listening to you, because as you've detailed the plan, that the plan is so close to being executed. And, you know, you talked about fans, and people love watching soccer in this country. And I see females watching the national team. I watch older women. I see young kids with signs, and that excites me because I said to myself, you know, these are girls that could be playing on a national team one day, and now they have an opportunity to have a career playing soccer. And for the first time, Canadians can now show their support and reserve their spot for the Northern Super League's inaugural season. How do they do so?
Yeah, today's exciting because from the very beginning of this project, people have asked me, how can you help? And I finally have a good answer because as of today, Canadians can put a deposit down on season tickets for the inaugural season. So $50 deposit, go to nsl.ca/tickets. That's going to get you a first seat to select a season ticket when they're announced later in the fall. So jump on there. Click the club you want to support in this country, and that's Canadians' first opportunity to show their support and get first in line for being at our inaugural season next year. So nsl.ca/tickets, check it out.
So exciting, Diana. And obviously, I got to say, from the Hamilton bias here, we need to get a team here in the Hammer as well, too.
Great market.
Like I'll tell you, a great market for soccer, and what a rivalry it will be with the QEW rivalry with the Toronto team. I wish you the best of luck. First of all, I appreciate you coming on the podcast and talking about it. I'm so excited for women's sports generally, and I've said this 1,000 times. I'll repeat it on this podcast, as I have a lot. If I had $10 million, I'd support it on women's sports, because I think there's so much growth and so much opportunity, and to see you succeeding and taking a leadership role in this as you have, because someone's got to do it. Can't all be followers. I'm so proud of what you're doing, and continue success. So we look forward to April kickoff. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Right on. Hey, folks, that's your Sportsline podcast for the day. And as you've just seen and heard, we love talking sports. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote, the Sportsline podcast do want to hear from you. Please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. If you have something to say, please comment, because that's how we get better. The wonderful people that make the Sportsline podcast possible, thank you so very much. And we'll see you tomorrow.